Welcome to Supporting Literacy Skills at Home for your preschool learners. Hopefully today you'll get some great ideas for play-based activities for home. My name is Jamie Lassane Spears, and I'm the Family Engagement Specialist here at Childcare Answers. I work with families in finding childcares that best fit their families and also providing content and parent workshops and education. So Childcare Answers is your local childcare resource and referral agency. We help Hendricks, Hamilton, and Marion counties. So in total, there's 5 of these across the state, and we make up the Childcare Resource and Referral Network. So at Childcare Answers, we aim to provide you with the highest level of early childhood education for children in Central Indiana and finding that care for you. To achieve this, we help families, communities, business, and childcare professionals. For more information, you can find us at any of these social media outlets. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then we also have our own YouTube channel. I highly recommend you like us on Facebook or follow us on any of these. We provide updates on our workshops and events, and also just basic parent education, and then also information about what's going on in childcare across the state. So let's get started. Literacy happens all the time. And today we're going to talk really about what literacy development looks like and then how we can incorporate these ideas into play. So there are 5 literacy skills that you will see develop in your preschooler, and preschooler being ages between 3 to 5 years old. So when I say preschooler, know that I'm also referring to pre-kindergarten as well as preschool. And even some 5-year-olds who are going into kindergarten. So it kind of varies across the age. But they're looking at developing certain skills like print awareness, letter knowledge, phonemic awareness, comprehension, and writing. We're going to dive deeper into each of these just for a few minutes, have a better understanding of what they are and what they can look like at home. Print awareness. So this is the whole idea that books, written words, and letters have meaning. So for your younger preschooler, they're beginning to understand that books have words and letters, but also they have titles and they have authors who write the words and illustrators who draw the pictures. They also are learning how to hold the book appropriately. So they're holding it upright and they're turning pages from left to right. Older preschoolers are doing all of that, but then they're also starting with your support to track words. So they're reading from left to right. And by reading, I mean following the words. Most preschoolers and pre-kindergartners are just at the beginning stages, and some aren't even ready to read yet, and that's okay. But if you have a familiar book or you're reading, always be pointing to the words as you're reading it so they can start seeing that it happens from left to right. And when they do that, they are practicing, and it's very important. Another literacy skill is letter knowledge, and this is one of the most famous skills. However, I also think it's one of the misunderstood skills. As a teacher, I had a lot of preschool parents always worried about their child knowing their alphabet and how many letters they knew before going into kindergarten. So this is important to begin letter recognition, but it's not the only part of literacy development. In fact, it's developmentally appropriate for younger preschoolers ages 3 to 4 to identify and recognize some of their uppercase letters and few of their lowercase letters. And then for older preschoolers, it's important that they start to begin identifying most of their uppercase and then some. I like to tell parents to start with letters with their name. So always introduce their name and begin letter recognition with that. The capital letters in their names, maybe they find all the capital letters of their name. So if their name is Tom, then it will be all capital T, capital O, capital M, and have them find all of that. And then start working on the lowercase letters in the name. Maybe they find the lowercase t, lowercase o, lowercase m. So work with them on finding and recognizing their name and exploring their name because it gives them pride and then also practice. So phonemic awareness is another component of literacy development, and this is the foundation to phonics. So phonics is really the ability to match the letter with the sound. So the letter T makes the T sound, but phonemic awareness, on the other hand, is a step before that. So that's the ability to hear a sound. So we're just hearing sounds and then starting to match sounds, putting sounds together, and then taking them apart. And so we're not associating them with letters at this point with a phonemic awareness, but we are hearing and we are listening to sounds in words and then just sounds in general and in play. So we're going to play a quick little game, and this is something that you can do in the car with your preschooler. It's something that's quite simple, but then also it can be engaging for at least a few minutes while you're trying to distract them or recenter their attention. I call it the mystery word game. You can call it whatever you would like, but mysteries tend to be preschoolers' favorite little activity. They love to investigate mysteries. So I'm going to make 3 sounds, and you as the participant have to figure out what word I am making from these 3 sounds. My first word is log. Log. What sound do you think that is? Yep, log. So that's the word log. Now we're going to choose 2 more. The next one is frog. Frog. Great job. And then the next one is bog. And then that one was bog. So if you can hear the sounds, then your child can say the word that you're making. And I like to do rhyming sounds. So if it isn't the og family, so log, frog, bog, bog is another one. You can do the at family, like cat, mat, sat. You can choose different word families, if you will, with the same sounds and have them make that. Now, the fun part with this, first of all, here's my little picture, is that you can take it a step farther and have them create a rhyme with those words or a rap with those words. It's completely up to you. I won't make you do that today, but that is something you can do with your preschooler, and they would absolutely love it. So in terms of literacy development, we're starting with experimenting with sounds. So this is the phonemic awareness, and they're pulling them and taking them apart and listening to them. They could also, in this category, are identifying beginning sounds. So all of the toys that start with the letter B, B, B. Can you find them? So you're looking for a block or a box or a boy or anything, a ball maybe, that starts with that sound. So they're not associating it with the letter, but they're taking that sound that they hear from the name of the object. And then this also incorporates rhyming and rhyming games and songs as well. Comprehension is another ability in literacy development that is being developed in your preschooler. So they can answer simple questions and then they can retell familiar stories. And typically this is with adult help. So with your guided questions and or pictures to help support that. They love to play and make believe. And so one way to incorporate doing comprehension at home is something as simple as reading a book and then acting it out in their dramatic play area or their pretend play area. That could be in a kitchen or even in their bedroom, wherever you have a little corner where they like to do imagination. Another skill, and this is the last skill we're going to talk about today, is writing. So for the sake of this workshop, we're not going to get into the details of what writing should look like in terms of how we're going to form our letters and working through that. We're going to talk about the idea of communicating ideas and stories through writing. So in the picture you see there's a child scribbling. That can be a form of writing for your youngest preschooler. So as they're going from their toddler to from toddler to preschool, they're still probably exploring with scribbling, making more shapes like circles and lines, more so than just scribbling, but they're still doing just the scribbles. And they might communicate as they're scribbling, this is mom and this is me, and we're going to the grocery store and we're going to buy an apple. So they're talking through a story while they're writing, and that's the first step of writing and development. And so they're beginning to explore, that, and then they're going to start turning the scribbles into more shapes. And then it goes from more shapes to actual drawings of people. Typically their people have heads and then arms sticking out of the heads first, and then you start getting the bodies. And then in the end, you're going to have a background to the picture, and then more of a story and a narrative where they're going to start putting letters on the picture, or maybe even trying to sound out words. So all in all, while literacy development is important and it is critical for kindergarten readiness, it's not the most important skill that children need. Most kindergartner teachers will say that the most important skill for kindergarten readiness is their social and emotional development and those skills associated with that. Here it says readiness doesn't mean just knowing the academic basics. It means a child has a willing attitude, confidence in the process of learning, a healthy state of mind. Having that social emotional development being the focus of kindergarten readiness really supports the child in getting their mind and their body and their hearts ready to learn. And that's what's essential for the foundation for any child in their learning development. So what we're going to do for the rest of our time together is we're going to talk about how we can build that social emotional awareness through play, but then taking all of our literacy and putting that in there too. So one of the best ways to build social emotional awareness is with play, and play-based learning really engages your child in learning. It takes it a step further than just repeating facts. It helps them really dive deep into it and develop those approaches to learning. So they're looking at problem solving. They're really curious about what's happening because they're a part of this. And then their attention is more focused because it's something they're actually interested in. Here's some examples of how play is connected to learning. So, and not just learning, but literacy learning. So a child might take a block and turn it into like a pretend phone or a cell phone. I've seen this a lot. They like to mimic us as adults. And so they might be texting on their pretend phone on their block or talking on their phone, which is really fun and cute. But then it also is showing you that your child is using abstract thinking. They're taking this block that's supposed to be for building, and they're thinking about it in a more abstract way. So they're taking it and they're making it into a phone that they can communicate with somebody else. And then you might just feel like it's just pretend play, but really it's their brains working and developing. Another way is completing puzzles and encouraging problem solving. This is something that happens all the time. When a child is doing a puzzle, they're solving problems, they're building strategies to complete the puzzle. And especially when you do puzzles with like ABC letters on it or different animals where you can say, oh, I see the animal that starts with the T sound or the D sound. You can have those conversations and help them build those strategies for solving the puzzle while incorporating literacy. And then my last example is just singing and dancing. And that is probably the best thing you can do with your child daily, just taking some time. It works out their physical development, but then also it gives them time to experiment with sounds, which goes back to the phonemic awareness. We're matching sounds, figuring sounds out. It also helps them experiment with rhythms and with rhymes, which again is back to that phonemic awareness. Okay, so we're going to dive into some examples of what you can do at home. So one of the examples is pretend play. This is something we have talked about a little bit with comprehension. I encourage families to always have a space in their house, whether it's just like a little corner in the living room or in their bedroom, just a space where they can create and change it into something different. Maybe they take some cardboard boxes and they build a farmer's market with it. We all have Amazon boxes laying around somewhere. So give them to your children and let them play around and create a house or a castle or a road. It's up to them. But when they do that, they're creating storylines and beginning to explore with characters and settings. You can have them read books and retell the stories through play. One of the things we can do with pretend play is add dolls, Legos, and minifigures or animals for building play. Just having simple blocks for building is great for engineering and developing those skills. But when you add little figurines to it, then you're incorporating stories and critical thinking about problem solving, and it really encourages those literacy development skills. And then my last idea for pretend play is something that I hope is a little bit different and new for you. It is called a story box. And all you do is you take your Amazon box and have it empty, and you put a few objects inside the box. So in the picture on the top right, I have like a little polar bear, I have a soccer ball, some mittens, and a mug, then with a scarf. And so when you open the box with your preschooler, the idea is that these objects become a story. These objects and only these objects. So they have to create that story. And you might have to help them with this, especially for your younger preschoolers. But when they open the box, they're going to see something that they didn't know what was in there. So it has that mystery component, which is exciting and engaging. And maybe they're going to take the scarf, and that's going to be the snow. And they lay out the scarf, and now you have snow on the ground. So you have your setting. And then you have the polar bear, and this is going to be your character. What is the polar bear going to do? Maybe he's going to kick the soccer ball and play with his penguin friends. And then he's going to find some mittens and think, oh no, these belong to my friend Polly the polar bear. And then he can move on forward and end with a cup of hot cocoa at the end. So the story box is really creative in the sense that, I mean, it could be a panda bear, it could be a polar bear. It's all completely up to the child and how they're going to create the story and move it forward. Another great way to encourage literacy play is through sensory play. And this is just the idea of using your senses to explore. So you can use your hands, your sense of smell, maybe your sense of sound, and even your sense of taste. I don't really have a lot of ideas for taste on this workshop, but I'm sure if you Googled it, you can find something. So my first example is using nature to create and match letters or tell stories. So in the bottom triangle on the left, you can see I have a little bin there, and inside the bin is lots of nature items. So pine cones, grass, sticks, twigs, but then I also have little rocks. And these rocks I bought because, well, I just wanted them to be really, really smooth, but I mean, you can use any rock. You can have your child go find rocks. They can be any texture you'd like, but I used a Sharpie and wrote letters on them and put them inside the bin. And so your preschooler's pulling out the letters and matching them to the letters on your either puzzle or sheet of paper you give them, or really anything that you can think of or have at home. And so that's a way to have them engaging with nature, but then also critically matching letters and exploring that letter development. Then you can also add objects with different beginning sounds to a sensory bin. So that middle triangle is a whole bin of rice, and inside it's basically your child's junk drawer of toys. Just pour a bunch of toys in there, and then you can have them find a toy and then match it to the letter that makes that sound. So this is getting into phonics. So this will probably be more for your older preschoolers, but maybe you find the d dog, and you find the dog, and then you help them match it to the letter D. So you're teaching them how to connect that phonemic awareness, the beginning sound, to the actual letter, which is that phonics. And then you can also just take game pieces like puzzles or Scrabble letters and add them to things. So you can add them to sensory bins with sand or rice. You could add them to Play-Doh. But one thing that's really fun is shaving cream. And I don't know if you've ever used this at home. It's really easy to clean if it's on like a tile or in your bathtub or outside. You can just spray it to get rid of it outside. You just add some Scrabble pieces to shaving cream and have them clean them off, make letters, and put them back in. Maybe they're going to hide them for you or a sibling as well. And then lastly, be creative and add different textures to your Play-Dohs and to your bins. So on the top triangle, you have just traditional Play-Doh with traditional letter cutouts, to add something on top of that to help them really engage with those letters and spend some time with them. Art play is really fun, really creative. It can be messy. Does it have to be messy? It's completely up to you how you want to engage in art at home. But one easy way is just to give your child a blank sheet of paper, just a plain blank paper, and have them draw a picture. And then once they're done with the picture, then you're going to ask them questions about that picture. So on the right side of the screen, you can see a beautiful, what looks like to be a queen. You can ask your child, what's her name? Where's she going? What happens next? And then maybe even ask her where she is at. And then they have to draw the background and the setting of the picture. And you can talk about that and use those big words with them. Wow, I can see that your character is Queen Rainbow and she is at the castle in the forest and she's going to go to, and you keep expanding their language and you keep expanding their drawing, which then is going to help them develop their storytelling. Another way to engage in art is just by reading books about the art and retelling the stories. So there's tons of books about preschool art. I wrote a blog about it a few months back, just giving you a couple examples that we can always share too with you, and just have them read the story and recreate what's happening in the story, whether it's retelling it, which means telling the story again or certain parts of the story again, or just creating the art like they did in this story. So in the story of the dot, maybe the art experience is just drawing a lot of dots, which seems simple, but it's really making essential connections. Okay, so when you move and create sounds and you're singing together, your children are developing. They're developing letter recognition, phonemic awareness, and comprehension. Through this music, children are practicing rhyming, they're practicing storytelling, and then they're matching sounds, which is that stepping stone into phonics, and helping them understand that sounds make up words, and then they put words together. So sing the ABCs and try it in different ways. Sesame Street has a couple videos on YouTube with different artists. I know if you're a fan of Usher from way back, there is one from a few years ago, but it's a really fun way to sing the ABCs, to have somebody that is famous and then have somebody sing it in a way that's not typical to what you might hear in a classroom. You can play instruments to familiar books, which helps with comprehension, because when a child is engaged in that music, in that movement, they typically remember more because their whole bodies are involved. So when you're going on a bear hunt, instead of just reading, they're going through grass, swishy, swishy, swishy. Maybe you're making that sound with your hands, swishy, 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 or you're incorporating a maraca or a different instrument that can make that sound. And then also, when you're doing music, you can just listen and match sounds, because that is, again, the stepping stone to phonemic awareness and phonics. So you're going to match sounds like maybe you bring out a pot and a pan, and this pot sounds really high in their sound, but this pot sounds really low. Let's find a pan that sounds like the high one. Let's find one that sounds like the low one. And then with movement, you can do anything really to incorporate literacy. And there's tons of ideas on Pinterest, but some of my favorites are add letters to your favorite sport. So you're adding letters to maybe a sports ball or to games like hockey. You can do paper plate hockey, putting letters on that, and then using a broom to put the letters in the goal. You can make letters with your body, with your arms during a song or during a yoga practice. There are some yoga videos, again, on YouTube. You can, I know that there's a lady named Cosmic Kids Yoga, and if you haven't followed her, I highly recommend looking her up, Cosmic Kids. She does a lot of storytelling with yoga, which is really great. And then you can also act out words and stories with your body. So this is just like your traditional game of charades, but it is one way to help them grow in their vocabulary and storytelling. Another great thing to do together is read together. And I'm sure you all have heard this, and I'm sure you all are working towards this at home on a daily basis. I wanted to draw a little attention to it because I think it's important to diversify our books at home, not just with characters, but also with content. Your preschooler is going to have to know in kindergarten what nonfiction is versus fiction. So adding a couple nonfiction books in your library is is important. You can do nonfiction in the sense of people or history. It can be illustrated, but then also have a couple of nonfiction books that aren't illustrated, and it's more photography, science, science-based. So you can see some examples there on the screen, and there's a lot of great lists if you just look up nonfiction children's books on just a traditional Google search. Repetition is critical for a comprehension, but also just building confidence in reading. So Pete the Cat books are great. They have a lot of repetitive activities. There are activities related to Pete the Cat books that we'll talk about, but it has a lot of repetitive wording in the book. And then I Ain't Gonna Paint No More is another classic that a lot of children love, and you can incorporate art with it, but then also it's repetitive and they start to learn and build confidence in their reading. And then fiction books, we all love our good fairy tales and fictional stories. I really enjoy the Pigeon series, the Mo Willems series, because it's engaging and it has the children responding to books, and it also has a little bit of repetition. So they can learn how to really read the story to others by practicing and repeating the words, but then also responding to a story that's interactive and it gets them excited about reading. And then Dragon Loves Tacos is just fun. It's an easy one to incorporate into like maybe a taco night at home or into play. And then our last thing that we're going to talk about today is the idea of card and board games. Cooperative play development is really important for kindergarten readiness, but then also just in general for your preschooler. So there's 4 different games you can play on the screen here. Sequence letters is a great one just for letter recognition. Any of the Pete the Cat games are great because you could read the book and then play the game. So you're reading the book and then you're playing the game, working on comprehension, and then maybe like Pete the Cat, the Missing Cupcakes game, you're working on some math skills as well. There are tons of Eric Carle games out there that are really wonderful. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, I think, has like a whole entire section in Target these days. But this one is one that works on letter recognition, the spin and seek, and you're taking turns with your child, or they can take turns with their siblings. And then the last one is creating your own board game. This is really fun when you want your child to take a step forward in their intentions or in their skills with development. They can create the game, they're designing the game, they're thinking logically about what should happen and what needs to happen. And then they also are writing on the board, maybe they're writing their own letters, and then they're thinking through how they're going to take turns. So they have that social component there too. And all you really need is a piece of paper and a marker, but you could make it as extravagant as cardboard box and scissors and glue and stickers. It could be like a whole afternoon worth of designing and then playing that night with pizza or whatever you want to do. So making it encouraging and fun. Well, I am really excited to hear what you are excited to try at home. I know one of my favorite things to do at home is read, but then also I'm really excited to really dive deeper into those nonfiction books. I would really love to do a little research outside and then read a nonfiction about like maybe an animal. Oh, Tom said he's really excited about trying all of it. That's really good to hear. So if you have any questions about anything that I've said today, please feel free to reach out to me. Here are my resources that I use. And here is Childcare Answers, again, on social media. I am here. You can find me an email at jamiel@childcareanswers.org. And thank you for coming and tuning in to my workshop today.